Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another movie discussion. This being a show where I just talk about movies that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Train to Busan, which I finally watched. Obviously, this is just going to be a general spoiler discussion all around, but if you are curious, you can check out the time codes. I'll basically allow you to jump around to the different topics that you might want to hear me discuss about the movie. But first and foremost, giving my general thoughts. I won't go into spoilers here, just kind of keep it a little non-spoiler, but this was a great movie. I'd heard nothing but great things about it. I just never got around to it. As you know, I'm not the biggest movie person, but finally, literally just finished watching it like a minute before I started recording this. It's a great movie. Obviously, I went into it knowing it was going to be a zombie movie, but the fact of the matter is the setting is so interesting because I feel like because usually zombieism, like, you never get allocated to such a small, area when dealing with zombies, which is kind of like the worst place you want to be. I mean, I guess arguably a wide open area probably would be where, I don't know, both situations have their advantages and disadvantages when they're dealing with a zombie situation, but how they handled zombies in this, kind of like, it is that zombie story thing of like, you don't really know what caused it, but you kind of get some inklings about it. We'll talk about that more during the actual spoiler discussion portion of it, but it is a great story. I like that it at the heart of it revolves around a father-daughter story. The entire thing is about kind of family and just being together during something like this, that it brings people together, and obviously the complications that come along with just, not everyone vibing on that same path, not everyone kind of co-signing on that. But, like I said, a lot of those topics we'll discuss more, but I just thought it was a terrifically executed story, and it just hits you in all the feels. And so I'm mad at myself for taking so long to see this movie. Like I said, heard nothing but good things about it, but it's just I don't watch that many movies, but it was like, man, this is great. So, like I said, general thoughts out of the way. Let's kind of just jump into some spoiler discussions. First thing I want to talk about is the zombies themselves, because that's always the thing. I've talked about it recently with vampires and stuff like that. It's always interesting to see what the fiction is going to use, because not everything follows the same set of rules when it comes to vampirism and stuff like that. So I was curious about the zombies in this, and I thought it was such an interesting, making the infection happen so fast is wild. It seemed immediate in some cases and not in others. Because obviously you have something like The Last of Us, which I think the show dived into it more than the video game did, about the rate of infection. Because I think in the game it seems pretty quick, but even then it's basically where you get bit in the TV show, they were saying that determines how fast the infection spreads. So I'm sure there's also the element of for plot reasons we decide that, but it's like some infections took a little longer than others, but then others happened, because some of those early infections I was like, Jesus, that was immediate. Because jumping ahead of the girl who's on the train, the moment she got on the train, I was like, oh, she's bit, she's the one that's gonna pop it all off, and she was. But it took her a little while to change. To be fair, she did who knows how long ago it was she was bit. It still seemed relatively fresh, and she did try and isolate it by she tied her leg a little bit, so it probably stopped the infection from spreading too quickly. But also, once again, it was in the leg, and then the moment she bit the other lady, she bit her in the neck, and she immediately turned. So that rate of infection is so interesting. The fact of the matter is that, we don't know if this is traditional zombie rules, because it didn't really come up in this case. It makes a lot of sense why it wouldn't, because this is set in Korea. Obviously, a lot of other countries don't have the gun situation that we do. The story would be very different. Maybe we'd know, it seems like zombies could, I don't know if they straight up killed any directly. Enough impact seems like it would kill them, but it's really unclear. Because once again, Korea, everyday citizens don't have guns in Korea, or at least I wouldn't assume that. The only people who does seem I don't even think police do, but that might be Japan. I think Korea's the same way, but it's only a military situation who has guns. But either way, so my point is, we don't know if it's a traditional you destroy the brain headshot type of thing. You probably most likely would work. We are also talking about fast zombies, which that was going to be the thing of like, considering the location, I was like, I mean, they seem like, yeah, I think they fall under the category of fast zombies because they're just like, a lot of your motor functions are still there, but it is still that thing of you are just driven by the hunger. Because one of the people on the train, she got turned and you saw her walking and she kind of twisted her ankle because of her heels, but she kept going. Under any zombie situation typically would be that of like, even when the body's harmed the way it is, you still keep going, you keep trudging along, right? But like I say, like fast zombies, and the fact is that they are purely driven by sight, which makes sense. It's even though by Walking Dead standards, that kind of fits in that same vein. But what I thought was so interesting is, as long as you are quiet and you block out their sight, they kind of almost work like, is it bats or is it no? I think it's owls. God, what creature am I thinking of? Maybe bats that kind of have that situation. It's not like an echolocation thing, but like the fact is they have terrible eyesight. So like darkness legitimately blinds them. Maybe it's like their eyes are now adjusted to only see maybe heat signatures, or I doubt it's heat signatures, but it was like maybe they have a general like very like cloudy like view. And so the moment, because we kind of got a tiny peek at it from their perspective of like the how darkness affects them, but that was kind of a neat thing, making it so like, right, they can't see in darkness, and how how our survivors utilize that over the course of the movie, like, you know, in situation. But I brought this up a little bit earlier than the general thoughts portion, but it was the whole aspect of, okay, the infection, and like, where did it start? Once again, it's not, I know for some people, how like seeing the beginnings of it is very important because you always typically find yourself in the middle of it, or you're pretty deep into it by the time you get started with some stories like a Walking Dead and stuff like that. So it is kind of nice to see the beginnings to some extent, like you do in some cases. Like I feel like I Fear the Walking Dead, you kind of got the slow like feed in at the beginning of the series, but you take something like in this case, Seok-Woo ends up hearing later on from the analyst that works with him, Mr. Kim, that apparently it was some biotech company that they're connected to, because he's a fund manager, which even I'm not 100% sure. I guess like maybe he allocates money based on like where people tell him to put the money towards things, and I guess they were connected to biotech, this biotech company. What was it, YS Biotech? And Mr. Kim was like, yeah, I think that's responsible. Like, are we at fault for this? Which is like, now it's like, I don't know if that had anything to do with like Seok-Woo's like circumstances at the beginning of the episode. He was talking to someone, he's like, oh, do we really have to do that? And the guy was telling him to do it, so he tells Kim like, oh, like sell all the certain things. It was like, that seems so, I mean, that was also like the playing like the Seok-Woo's like not much of a, like, he hasn't really been there for his daughter Soo-An because he's always working all the time. So I just thought it was so interesting that whole aspect, because that will tie more into Seok-Woo as we talk more, but I thought it was just kind of an interesting aspect of like, oh, this is how the infection potentially started. That's the only details we really get in the movie, and I think that's perfectly fine. Like, it doesn't need to be explained, but it is nice that it is given some thought of like, oh, like, how did this start? I mean, obviously it has to be like something bio related, but we don't know like what exactly happened. But it's like, you know, Mr. Kim was like, are we responsible? But Seok-Woo was like, no, don't blame yourself. You're not at fault. And, you know, for him, it's like, it meant a lot. I think that might have been the end of Mr. Kim, so it probably would have meant a lot to him to hear that. Like, he was probably beating himself up of all this death and destruction, like so many lives ruined, so many families torn apart. Like, am I responsible for it? Did I do something wrong? But it's like, and I'm curious what else Seok-Woo would have said to him, because he was like, Kim, but he had already hung up. Most likely he was nearing his end, I'm sure. That's how I interpreted that. But yeah, kind of going into like sliding into what I was talking about a little bit about Seok-Woo and his circumstances. But yeah, like his him going through a divorce. His wife ex wants Soo-An to come to her because it's like it's her birthday, and he has a very tumultuous relationship because it's like, no, this is my daughter. But she's like, yeah, but you're not really even taking care of her. Did you even get her a gift? Did you remember that tomorrow, like, it's her birthday? It's like, yes, I know it's her birthday. Like, just kind of stop nagging me. But he'd even missed out on her recital, and his mother recorded it. But the problem is, like, she stopped partway through the song, and I love that theme and element coming full circle throughout the movie. But yeah, she had stopped because she saw, like, I think her grandma recording it, and it's just like, yeah, but you're here, but Dad's not. And she was looking for him, because for him it's like, she's like, because his mother was trying to be understanding, like, I get it, like, you're at such a crucial point in time when it comes to work, so everything's a little hectic, you're trying to do everything you can, but she's also like, remember, this is a critical time for her as well, because, you know, she will grow up kind of resenting you, and you're also going to look back on, like, oh man, I miss all this time with her when she was growing up, and you'll kind of lament on that. So he even did get her a gift, but he got her a Wii, but she already had one. And it's like, oh, huh. It's like, she was like, and she said it was from like a very, what was it? I forgot what it was. It was like a holiday gift she had gotten. And I was like, I don't know if that's supposed to imply like maybe that was something that was given to her by her mom on this particular holiday day that wasn't related to her birthday. Or is that indicative of, oh, he got it for her, but he's just so wrapped up in work, he didn't remember he'd already gotten her one, you know? Because he was like, oh, but, you know, is there anything else you want? And for her, it's like, I want to go to Busan to see Mom. But he's like, no, work's so tied up right now. And just, for her, it's just indicative, like, her dad just always working all the time. And it's like, they don't really have the best relationship. I mean, who knows what the relationship was like. But it's just, like I said, he works all the time. Because I like how that ties into that interesting conversation that him and Sang-Hwa had, where it's kind of like, oh yeah, like, kids, you know, eventually your daughter will grow up and she will appreciate and realize like why you worked so hard. It's like, yeah, being the dad, you kind of get you kind of get the shit into the deal. You end up getting, you know, all the anger and stuff like that without any of like the reward. You know, you don't get the praise or anything like that. But he's like, yeah, that's kind of being a parent. You know, it's all about sacrifice, right? So I thought that was kind of like how that, especially how that plays into Seok-Woo's character and development. But yes, they get on the train to Busan. It's supposed to be a trip of just taking her there and just, you know, coming back for any meetings and stuff that he has. And you could tell immediately we were kind of getting introduced to some of our core cast, the way we were kind of bouncing around but between some of the characters. But and you never knew who was going to last long and who was going to be like on the chopping block immediately. Like one of the attendants on the train, like the one who was kind of one of the first ones to go. Like I would have expected her to be around a little bit longer than she was, but it's like, well, she led to some like massive infection spiking happening on the train. But like I said, because of the rate of infection and just the fact is that you're in such a linear spot, like the train's moving. I'm surprised the conductor stayed as live as long as he did. I'm curious, like, were there not like that many infected? I mean, to be fair, because they all went, because to be fair, he's stationary. So as long as they are chasing after people who are running away, that's where all their focus is. So that's why they probably went so much further to the back of the train. Because I think probably like the closer you get to the front of the train, the less infected are. Because he never really had to deal with it. We never cut to him and it was like, oh, he was dealing with it. It just, they probably like stayed closer to the back of the train. Because as long as he never left the front, like the infected would never come towards him. Because I mean, maybe I'm sure because definitely as a conductor he also has his own port, like whereas like you'd have to go to very specific cars to like maybe get the doors open on certain parts where you enter the train. He has his own door, so he doesn't have to leave that section of the train to get out. It's like, oh, I have a door right here. So he never really had to continuously deal with it. So it kind of makes sense on that part why like he never had to worry about that and just able to kind of truck along. But like I said, this just linear line of like, hey, you have to infect it coming after you, and it's just it's rough. And pretty early on we kind of get to, well, we already knew he was kind of like, well, you know, not 100% the best father, but we got a peek at Seok-Woo as being kind of an early edition asshole, because he kind of caved into peer pressure where he saw Sang-Hwa and Sung like coming, which, you know, it's even more messed up because it's like, yo, she's pregnant and you're about to close the door on them, which to be fair, like even she was kind of like not jumping down his throat like Sang-Hwa was, because for Sung-Kyung, it's like, right, everyone's just scared because he was also listening because other people were like, yo, close the door, what are you doing, don't leave it open. And it's like, but he's also Seok-Woo, so on, that also figured, yeah, they're not opening the door, they don't have brain, like they're driven by instinct and sound, so as long as they put up newspapers to cover the doors, it's like, oh, they don't even recognize that you're there, they don't realize that you're there unless you're making noise, so as long as you're quiet, it's fine. But yeah, he comes off like a dick. Even his daughter, even Soo-An is kind of like, because he's trying to teach her, hey, don't help anybody. We got to look out for ourselves. And it's like, yeah, I think that's a mentality that carries over from like his job. And now he's applying it to such a situation. It's like, right, we got to look out for each other, but not anyone else. But because even Sang-Hwa was talking to her about it, it's kind of like, he's like, oh yeah, your dad being a fund manager, he's a bloodsucker, and she's like, don't talk about him like that in front of his own daughter, which even Soo-An was like, yeah, but kind of everyone says that about him. So I thought that was kind of this neat situation. I also didn't initially realize like how much of the baseball team got because the only ones that ended up surviving ended up being Jin-Hee, who was like a cheerleader, and Yong-guk. And there was also this thing between them. What we're jumping at, in the middle of their story, so we don't know what it is. But it seems like she kind of likes him, and everyone on the team kind of teases him about it. Where I don't know if it's a thing of, oh, it's embarrassing that you kind of, maybe she made like a declaration in front of everyone, and now he's kind of embarrassed, because it does seem like he does like her, but he's also being like very like, kind of giving off tsundere vibes, at least the way he's acting towards her, like almost like, oh, I don't like you type of situation. I don't know. He just seemed like he was embarrassed, but I don't really, once again, we don't really know enough about that dynamic to really be able to comment on it. But what I also was surprised by is when the train actually stopped, I was like, interesting. I was pretty sure you were going to be on the train the entire time, which, to be fair, they immediately ended up popping back on the train, because they got off the train like, okay, like, is everything fine at the station? Okay, there's military waiting for us. Oh, nope, the entire military got infected, because Seok-Woo was going to take Soo-An their own way, but she's like, no, we should tell the others. And then the homeless guy came along because he was like, yeah, I heard your conversation. Yeah, you thought I wasn't really listening because I seemed like I was out of it. He'd already seemed like he went, I mean, we don't know for sure, because when they found him initially in the bathroom in the earlier parts of the movie, he was saying they were all dead. Now, either that was kind of because he's going through some PTSD. We don't know, like maybe he's a soldier or something that's some PTSD. I'd assumed from the beginning that was going to be about the infected, but he never said anything. He just kept quiet to himself, because I guess he's like, even under these circumstances, he didn't say anything of like, oh yeah, I'd already experienced this. Because I had skipped over, but I do think it's so interesting that just as they were leaving the train station at the beginning on their way to Busan, shit had already started popping off, because like one of the people on the outside, like getting people on the trains and stuff, as the train's pulling away, he gets jumped, and the only person who saw it was Soo-An, because Seok-Woo was already like knocked out. I was like, that's so interesting. Also, her being away from her dad, I thought was going to be a bigger plot point, which, I mean, it kind of does later on when it gets separated, but I thought was going to be a thing of maybe she would, luckily she didn't wander off on her own except for the beginning. It's, kind of like, she's a kid, she's not going to think much of it, like who knew we'd be, balls deep into like a freaking zombie apocalypse. So, but I think that also kind of plays into him kind of not always keeping an eye on her, being, once again, not really the best dad of the year award type of situation. Yeah, but a lot, not everyone, but quite a few people got back on a train, but there's quite a few that ended up dying before they could, because of Yong-Suk, who was trying to be like, yo, let's get out of here. Gi-cheol, he's like the main guy who was talking to the conductor throughout the movie. He was one of the attendants on the train. I think at that point he was like the only attendant that was still alive, but he was trying to get people back on the train, trying to find some, trying to make sure everyone's okay. But the problem was, like, once again, you had Yon-Suk being like, no, we gotta go, because it's self-preservation, which I do love how that ties into everything, because I love that he ends up being the biggest villain of this movie. It's like, once again, it's a zombie story, so you're going to have the zombies are a threat. They're your main threat, but you also have to be weary of humans. humans to some extent were, like I said, I think the movie does this really interesting balance, a great balance of, right, people working together and then people working together to work against you type of thing, of like that fear and what it does. It motivates people to grow closer together in good ways and bad ways, in that herd mentality that kind of happens in the movie, especially with Yon-Suk at the heart of it. It's like, man, that takes a lot. Once again, you have, and this applies, like I said, to a lot of zombie fiction, but it speaks volumes when you're able to be a bigger piece of shit and cause more destruction and devastation than just the zombies. Because yeah, he had a lot of bodies on his hands because he was responsible for so much. But we'll get to Seok-Woo in a little bit. But just like I said, all the different groups getting like divided. There's the older like grandmas who are sisters, them getting separated. Yong-guk and Jin-Hee being separated. Sung-Hwa being separated from Sang-Hwa, and even Soo-An being separated from Seok-Woo. So that moment of just like them holding everyone back with the glass door, and then like obviously sadly two of the baseball players got, but Yong-guk, Seok-Woo, and Seok-Woo and Sang-Hwa like running to the train, them getting on, and Sang-Hwa picking up the baton and the shield and bashing. I was like, yo, because it's like, right, we're in this together. Like we had, me and you, Seok-Woo, we had beef, but we're in this together. Got him on the train, and it's like, well, he ended up getting in contact with his wife, and it turns out, obviously, Seok-Woo finds out Soo-An is with her. They're in train 9. Seok-Woo and them are in train 9. She's in like train 13. And now they got to get through some zombies. And I was like, they're taping themselves up, got some batons and bats in their hands. It's like, all right, it's just that moment, just like, all right, guys, let's get to work. And they act like a well-oiled machine. It was so sad too when Yong-guk couldn't do anything against his team, because it's like, regardless of them being infected, it's a little easier when it's people you don't know, when your entire squad is here and they're all infected. And he paused, and luckily he didn't have to do anything because they ended up going through the tunnel, and that stopped all of them. So it's like, all right, let's distract them long enough, get to the next door, close it. It's like, cool, as long as we close it and lock it. I mean, we don't even have to necessarily lock it. All we have to do is close it, because they can't open it. Granted, if enough of them pile on, they will be able to break through, but the door's structurally strong enough, and I don't know if they would necessarily be able to fully fit in those particular windows. So, because I don't think they'd have the wherewithal to just climb through the window. I even love when that squad meets up with the other survivors, in car 13, and obviously Sung-Hwa being so pissed at Sang-Hwa for because she was so happy to see him, but she's also hitting him, and he's kind of rubbing his chest like, ow, that hurts, babe. But it's also like, you made me worried. I was scared, but I'm glad that you're okay. And them kind of hiding in the bathroom together, and Seok-Woo making fun of Sang-Hwa's ringtone. He's like, oh, it's tacky, and he's like, what's wrong with it? He's like, how do you change it? And then Yong-guk being the one that's kind of laughing a little. It's like this little cute moment between that trio I thought was kind of neat. But yeah, they were once again waiting for their opportunity, especially when the tunnel came up again. They ended up finding their way where the baggage stuff would be. I think that would be considered the baggage area on a train. I don't know, maybe there's other because they ended up finding a bag up there, so I think it is a luggage compartment type of area, but they ended up crawling across that. Luckily, they almost made it through completely, except for the homeless guy. Sadly, they slipped and fell, and before they could get out, they came out of the tunnel, and luckily everyone hid at the same time. So, but that situation, it sucks so much, especially because that's where we lost Sang-Hwa, and it's man, good guy through and through. That was just such a sucky situation, especially because earlier him and Sung Gyung had that whole conversation about the fact is they hadn't named their baby yet, so she had named the baby Sleepy because the baby didn't actually have a name yet, and him sacrificed. Like the moment he got bit, you're like, no, especially because Yon-Suk was the one kind of convincing everyone, hey, let's keep that door closed, because he's the one that kind of got everyone paranoid by being like, oh, you really want to, like, they had to go through all those cars and we're just going to let them in because they're going to be infected, which is stupid because you're not thinking rationally, because if they were infected, getting all the way there, enough time has passed, you've seen the infections spreading fairly quickly enough that would, like, if they actually came all the way across quite a few cars like that, then that means they aren't infected, because he's conscious enough to be like, hey, we're like talking to you, so it's like and messaging you, these things have been shown to not have those much. Once again, you're not thinking rationally, you're being driven by fear, because you don't, in their defense, to some extent, and giving them slight leeway, not excusing it, but giving slight leeway, is the fact is you don't know the intricacies of how this fully works yet. Who knows how much you've been paying attention to group that's in that car with Yon-Suk and everything. So, but your boy Sang-Hwa, like, going out swinging, I'm infected, turns to his wife, and just before she's leaving, because he told Seok-Woo, it's like, take her, look after make sure like her, my child are taken care of. And Seok-Woo, it's like, I'm sorry, like, it's like I said, especially because they had that heart to heart about being fathers, and it's just like, right, because Seok-Woo knows what that meant. It's like, right, your daughter's going to grow up without you in her life, so it's like, that sucks. And it's like, yeah, but he ended up giving their child a name, and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, man. And once again, the infected came in, he's swinging, even in infected, you can still see, like, there is a period of time that even with the infection spreading, the eyes are cloudy and it's spreading through their veins. He's still holding on. He's still infected. Grabbed one of the infected and used it to kind of hold the others back. It was like still fighting for dear life, even to the bitter end, to give them more time. And luckily, because they had basically created like a pulley system to kind of keep the doors locked on the other side. And Yong-guk ended up breaking through with his bat, and they ended up like pushing through, and they tried to close the other door, but luckily they got there in time, and Seok-Woo helping out as well, like they were able to get the door open. But it didn't stop one of the granny, like the granny that was on the other side that was safe, sees her sister, but before Seok-Woo could get to her, like, she kind of almost nodded, like, no, go ahead, like, leave me. I'll just slow you down. And she had to watch because she even, like, nodded to her sister, like, it's okay. It's like, you just found out your sister's alive, because she was so despondent the entire time because she thought her sister was gone. Like, because she wasn't getting too concerned about the other survivors. For her, it's like, it didn't matter. My sister's gone. It's like, could she have done anything? Who knows? Because 95% of that car was about it. The only people that wanted to help anyone in that situation was Jin-Hee. She's the only one that wanted to help make sure the other survivors got through, but no one else in that car cared. And even that old lady didn't care until she saw her sister on the other side, but she's immediately killed. And Seok-Woo, like, jumping down Yon-Suk's throat, being like, why did you do what you did? We could have saved him if it wasn't for you. It's like, yeah, 2 people are dead now because of you, you piece of shit. And I do love that it is this reversal, because Seok-Woo was the selfish piece of shit at the beginning of the movie, but now it's like, no, like, that, do you realize what you've done? Like, none of us were infected. And what did Yon-Suk do? He doubled down. He was like, oh, this guy, Seok-Woo, he's infected. It's like, look at his eyes. And he's like, really? And then everyone, once again, that fear just leads to everyone just being like, yeah, get out of here. You need to be in the best of you. I'm like, okay, so I figured the situation was going to turn into the way it did. I thought there'd be more of a, like, I figured they were all going to get infected, but I thought the situation was going to be that Seok-Woo would have the opportunity to decide whether or not he'd save them or not. But it's like, oh, you guys stay on this side, and it's like, cool. Once you see that we aren't infected, none of them are probably going to bother checking in with them from time to time. But it's like, yeah, just stay where you're going to stay. And it's like, Because Suk knew like he fucked up because Seok-Woo looked at him and he kind of looked down because he knows like how fucked up he was for doing that. It's like, once again, going back to it, you were the biggest piece of garbage in this movie doing what you did. But I think that also made Seok-Woo look at himself a little differently. Like, yes, I can judge him, but also at the same time, I was the same way as him. I was willing to throw. I was really willing to throw people on the bus and only look out for myself. And once again, even his daughter called him out for it. But in the end, he did the right thing, and he was on the right side of things, whereas like everyone else wasn't. And the moment that old lady's looking at her sister, I was like, she's gonna open the train door because she's basically gonna be pissed at you. Because for her, it's like, she's like, you are always the one looking out for other people, always trying to help people. And she's almost like, what did that get you? And so like kind of retribution. It's like, I guess for one, to be with her sister, because I'm like, I'm not going to be in this world without my sister, but also fuck everyone else in this train being so selfish. It's like, if it wasn't for you, my sister would actually still be alive right now. You people are garbage and you suck and you don't deserve to live. So she opens the door, they come storming in, and it's like, well, because of all the precautions you set up, it wasn't easy for them to get through the door. Plus, you guys didn't learn the secret from Seok-Woo that, hey, darkness is your friend. I mean, there are points where they ended up passing under tunnels. To be fair, it's also like there's so many people screaming and trying to run away. There's no getting around that. A lot of them had already been infected at that point in time. Granted, what was it? Yon-Suk and Gishio are the ones who ended up surviving. When it was all said and done, I'm like, because I was like, the moment we saw the bathroom door later on, I was like, oh, Yon-Suk, you survived, you piece of shit. But it turns out like the Gishio, the attendant, also survived too. I was like, wow, you two were the main ones behind everything. Once again, it was mainly Yon-Suk, but Gishio was just as responsible. I was like, wow, you were the only two pieces of shit that survived. That's ironic. Hope you live with that guilt for as short-lived as it was, because Yon-Seok ended up sacrificing Gichio, so didn't have to stay with that guilt for too long. But it's like, man, with that, the numbers had whittled down, because at that point it was 9. It was our 6 survivors, the conductor, and those 2. So I was like, man, the entire train, we are down to 9. Because also, Jin-Hee had gone along with Yong-guk because she didn't want to be, for one, didn't want to be left alone with these pieces of shit that were willing to do that. It's like, I'd rather stay with you, like, regardless of anything, because, like, she's like, I know you guys aren't affected. I'd rather be with you, which is the smart decision, obviously, but it's also, I've seen who these people can be. Like, you know, the circumstances brings out the worst in people, but like I said, this movie also showcases it brings out the best in people, because amongst that group, what did they do? They constantly help each other out. That's what that core group of like the Car 9 people, like I said, Seok-Woo and Sang-Hwa and Yong-guk, like when they went to go rescue everyone from Car 13, that entire core group were like the good people. They're the good guys in this situation. Everyone else, pieces of shit. So. And that's also what you learn from Soo-An, why she didn't finish her song, because her dad had made a whole point, and I thought this is kind of an important detail too, of finish what you start. You need to basically have that mentality. But for her, the reason she didn't finish her song is because she practiced it for her dad, but she was like, what was the point of finishing it if he's not here? I wanted to sing it for you, and because you weren't there. And so also, because he can't get in touch with his ex-wife either, so he doesn't even know if she's okay, because he had made a promise where it's like, I'm going to get you to your mom, and I'm not going to leave your side, because she thought, like, oh, that'd be the last time I see you, and I never got to sing my song to you, which she never does. And you're just like, oh, that's what makes it so much worse at the end, but I'll get to that soon enough. But yeah. I mean, the conductor being the MVP, trying to be like, all right, so guys, we're blocked off. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to get another train, and it's going to be set up to the far, far left. So if there are any survivors on this train, get to there on the far, far left. Like I said, your boy Yong-Suk being the biggest selfish piece of shit he can be, sacrificing people left and right. There's a situation where he got off the train. I was like, the least you could have done, you piece of shit, was close the door behind you so they wouldn't follow you out. But nope. And then he jumps onto another train and keeps leaving the doors open. And that led to Jin-Hee getting bitten, which I was like, no. I was like, you were doing everything you can to fuck over everyone. I mean, come on, my guy. Like, come on, you didn't even have to do that. And obviously, Yong-guk didn't go anywhere. He stayed with her and apologizing to her. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I think it's partially because it's like, you're only in this situation because you decided to come along with me. To be fair, she stayed in that train car, she would have been dead. But also, like, I failed to protect you. But also, I wasted so much time between us. I never really fully told you how I felt and everything. And we see her bite him, and that's the last we see of them in the movie. And it's just like, damn, dude. Because you're kind of hoping, like, oh, maybe you two could make it out of this, the young love. And nope. So you're like, okay, so that didn't work out. Then you had, like, the homeless man sacrificing himself. Once again, this entire group of, like, yeah, we're looking out for each other. He sacrificed himself to hold them back so that Soo-An and Sung-Gyeong could crawl underneath the train to get away. And it's just like, damn, dude. Once again, sacrifice after sacrifice. I was like, these are some good people, dude. Why is it that the good people die where the pieces of shit get to live? That sucks so much. Oh, even the conductor, what does he do? He goes out, he sees Yon-Suk in trouble. He's like, okay, I'm gonna try and help you. And he gets bit instead. And what does Yong-Suk do? Motherfucker heads for the train to leave him behind. I'm like, you piece of shit. Once again, you are the reason everything's going so wrong. Like, God, there'd be so many more people alive if it wasn't for you. I entirely blame you for Sang-Hwa's death and that old lady's sister's death, everyone in that train car, because he's the one that kind of got everyone hyped up on that. Like, if he hadn't been so selfish, because he's like, oh, I'm looking out for all of us. It's like, no. You're only looking out for them because the more they are around, the less likely you are to die. And you ended up getting him killed. Yes, the old lady was kind of sucky that she did that, but also, like, she was like, nah, fuck y'all. You got my sister killed. I don't want to be here. My last fuck you is to open this door and get you all screwed over. So it's like, ugh. Then you have Sung-Gyeong, Soo-An, and Seok-Woo, like, making it your turn. You're like, come on, you can do it. And luckily they don't make it. But then, like, the infected are crawling and hanging on to each other like a chain. I was like, oh God, please don't. But luckily he was able to kick them all off. I also love that one particular zombie that got like kicked off and then like his body flung in front of like some metal thing and you saw him kind of like hit it at full speed and then get like kind of bounced him super far towards the screen. But luckily it's like, okay, everything's okay. And I was like, how is Seok-Woo going to react when he finds young so like in front of the I was like, are you going to threaten him and throw him off? But then because my thought immediately was like, all right, you're going to see him, you're going to grab him, you want to threaten him. It's like, this is your fault, and try to throw him off. But then Soo-An was like, no, don't do that. Did not expect the twist of, oh, he's actually infected, but he's not fully there. But he's like, please, I'm trying to get to my mom's, and it's just like, then the thing is like any good story, they're trying to humanize him. You're like, you're still a piece of shit, but it's also like, right. People, when they are desperate, they will do a lot in desperation. And that it wasn't just for selfish reasons he was trying to get back. He was trying to get to his mom in Busan. It's like, my mom's there. Her address is this. It's like, please, like, take me home. Like, I want to be with my mom. I want to make sure she's okay. I mean, especially because I'd skipped over it, but like, Seok-Woo learned that his mom's not okay. Like, she was on the because it does seem like at the end, like it does seem like transforming like does something to your brain, because she was like, oh, like Soo-An never really loved me. All she cared about it was her mom, and then she was like, and referencing Soo-An's mom being like, oh, that bitch. It's like it seems like it corrodes your brain a little bit, and I felt like it was kind of almost like a rage virus, like 28 days /24 28 weeks later type of thing of like a rage virus thing. So I was wondering if it was just going to make you kind of like give more into your anger, because they were kind of calling this as like, you know, they never actually say the word zombie in the movie, but there's like words that are being typed out, I guess, like over the internet, and like one of the hot keywords was zombie. I think it's interesting, they never like, because no one actually says the word, but no one ever gives them, it's not The Walking Dead where it's like, oh, rotters or walkers. Like, the word zombie is there to be like, oh, this is zombies, we're just not going to bother saying the word. Because I wonder, was that something thought of after the fact, like maybe post-production, or was that a conscious choice not to really use the word zombie, but also being like, no, we're not or was it a post-production choice to be like, we gotta acknowledge that this is zombie, we live in a world where people would know what zombies are, but it doesn't necessarily make, you know, especially in a country where like weapons aren't readily available like that. Once again, you're also on a train, like, yeah, there's batons and baseball bats. The only reason why there's batons is because of the police gear that they had picked up like when were at the previous stop. So, and then we get like the tragic, and I was like, oh god, we're gonna do this. I know it's gonna be one of those stories, but please don't let it be one of those stories. And yes, Seok-Woo gets bit. You're like, fuck me. I was like, come on, dude, do we have to make literally everyone except Soo-An and Sung-Gyung are the only ones who ended up surviving. I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those depressing movies where they're the only survivors. I was like, that sucked. And he just made that promise to his daughter and everything, but he luckily got rid of Yon-Suk, but it's just like, damn. Because the moment he had his hand over his face, I was like, don't put your hand there, he's going to fucking bite you. Fuck. Oh god. And for him, it's like he's letting Sung-Gyung know, like, okay, like when you get to a safe place, this is most likely to break. Use that to slow down and stop. And, you know, telling Soo-An is like, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna be safe. And she's even blaming herself like, this is my fault. Because I think in her mind, it's like, I'm the reason why we're on this train in the first place. It's probably two things. One, you started helping people because I asked you to, and that caused more problems. Two, the fact of the matter is you would be okay if you weren't having to look after me. Three, I'm the one that wanted to go to Busan. You were saying like, let's wait. Who knows? Things probably could have been so much worse if they had stayed, but who, you know, it's like you're a child, you're sad and confused. It's just a terrifying situation, and you know what this means for your dad. And her bawling her eyes out to the point even he can't stop himself from crying, but he's just kind of like, I gotta go. So he like makes her stay in there, and Sung-Gyung like holds her back, and it's just, he goes to the other side of the car just kind of like crying. But as he's transforming, he's driven to this peaceful moment, because the same thing kind of happened with Seok, where it's just like, what's him being like, oh, I want to see my mom. Like, I think it makes you, travels you maybe to a special moment, maybe like for him at the end, maybe he did want to go to Busan for selfish reasons of just like, right, that's the only place that's safe. But also maybe it's because like he had other connections there, but maybe upon getting infected, he thought about his mom, and he's like, I want to be with my mom right now. I want to make sure she's okay. Like, he became selfless in that moment, but still didn't, once again, doesn't erase the selfishness that it was. But in that moment, like the last moments, Seok-Woo is like just thinking about his daughter, and he's smiling, and he lets himself fall off the train, because it's like, I don't want to stay on this train and be a danger to them. So with a little bit of his consciousness left, he throws himself off the train. I was like, fuck, dude. I was like, but also I was like, the movie's not over. And I was like, well, are we going to have a really dark and depressing ending to this movie that it seems like, oh, they might survive, but then it turns out, oh, they end up in a place that's even more infected. I kind of thought that might be where we'd end up, but I thought maybe like Seok-Woo would be with them. What I mean by that, if you're familiar with the Final Destination movies, how some of those end, I was kind of thinking that, where it's like, oh, you think everything's resolved? Oh, double middle fingers, you're actually kind of screwed, because shit just got real, and you're in a desperate situation that you most likely won't make it out of. That's where I thought the movie was going to end. I mean, nothing's resolved. It's still like ongoing at the end, but Sung-Gyung, like, I also kind of halfway expected her to kind of pop at any moment, like, as in, like, her baby being born at some point in time. I kind of kept halfway expecting that throughout the movie, and it never happened. But her going along with going along with Soo-An. I'm also not going to lie to you. That ending kind of gave me so much anxiety because I was like, oh, please. I was like, well, they're going through the tunnel. I was like, is something going to happen to them? But then the tunnel they start fading to black. I was like, maybe not. Then we go to some soldiers on the other side and they see the two of them. It's like, all right, can we confirm whether they're infected or not? It's like, no, we can't. I was like, oh, God. I won't lie to you. I fast forwarded a little bit just to be like, I don't want to see it if they get shot. Okay, good. So then I rewound. I was like, okay, it's good. It's good. It's good. But it's like what saved him is Soo-An singing, which I was like, oh, her crying and singing at the end broke me again. I was like, dude, you had to get in one more gut punch before you even went to credits. You had to sneak in one more. Once again, I talked about it earlier, but she never got to sing the song to her dad. And even the song is about, oh, we will meet again. But it's like she didn't get to finish the song to her dad. And this time with her dad gone. And what did he say? Even if I'm not there, I'm always watching you. So what does she do? She sings it because she knows like wherever her dad is that he's watching her. I was like, that is a gut punch. And it's also the reason why the soldiers didn't pull the trigger. And look, it's like, oh, they're survivors and go and rescue them. But it's like, Jesus. Hell of a way to end the movie. Like I said, one final gut punch. But it was a beautiful gut punch to make it all come full circle in so many ways. It's just, once again, Seok-Woo going out like a hero because he was doing the selfless thing time and time again. You know, even keeping his promise to Sang-Hwa, like, I'm going to look after your wife and your child. I mean, I couldn't see it all the way through, but I put them in a situation where they would be okay. And Soo-An singing her song is what saved him. Her wanting to sing to her dad. Like, how it just all those themes and elements come together like that. Being the resolution of this movie is really beautiful. But also, like I said, nothing's resolved. Like, Busan's being like fortified to the extent that they could because they're putting containers in the pathway to kind of block anything. But yeah, the entire infection spread throughout the city and all these different pockets throughout the city and stuff. So, like I said, a hell of a movie. Depressing ass movie because, of course, it would be because it's zombie fiction. And you know, but it's like, I don't know. Like, there's so many ways this story could have gone, and just, this is the least depressing of all the depressing ways this could have gone. So, there's that at least. I remembered hearing that there was a sequel to this, which I just looked it up. It's called Peninsula. But from what I saw, it's like, it has no connection. So, it's an isolated story just like this one is. So that is kind of interesting. I'm kind of glad. I mean, because that could have easily gone wrong for me. Like if I had spoiled that for myself, but like that wording just means like no, it's its own thing. So I'm curious what the situation. It must be kind of like it. It's probably going to be a little more widespread with the name Peninsula. I'm assuming like they're literally trapped on a peninsula. So. That's interesting because I'm sure you're like, right, you did the train thing, you're not going to do it again for the sequel. So, but yeah, like it being like its own thing. From what I was reading and probably maybe get more details as we watch the movie. I don't know when I'm going to jump on that, but I'll probably try and do it relatively soon just so like, you know, with this movie being so fresh in my head, even though there's no like direct correlation, but from what I can tell, because the movie came out 2020, so it in universe it takes place 4 years after Train to Busan, so it's like to see what the state of the world is in the aftermath of that, and you probably get, you know, no characters might pop up, but you'll probably get some lore about like, well, what's going down and have they been able to mitigate any of this at any point in time, and also what are the characters and stories we get in this movie. So I'm excited to jump into the sequel at some point in time. But yeah, overall, like I said, a great movie. Hell of a ride. It ends up being my phrase a lot, but it's even more so poetic in this particular situation. So, like I said, at the core of it, I do love that, you know, it's like this. It is at its core father-daughter story, you know, escort mission type of movie. But like I said, I do love, like, you know, once again, I think. You can say what you want to about the zombie like fiction. For a lot of people, this brought them back towards zombies, where like they felt like, oh, like because of The Walking Dead and everything, people might have been burnt out on zombies. But I think this really did a good job revitalizing that for a lot of people. But what I think it's so interesting, it's like always about zombie fictions in particular, especially the ones that kind of lean in the more horror aspect. Because I had to specify because when you have something like iZombie, but I think even that can still be applicable. Like, yeah, the humanity element of it, of just kind of like who people are. Like when it comes to a desperate situation, will you be a selfless person? Will you be a selfish person? And I mean, we're all capable of that. It just depends on which side of yourself you feed more under those circumstances, you know? Because we're all capable of being that selfless person, but we're also all capable of being that selfish person in the end. So, but yeah, I've rambled on long enough. I think that's really all I wanted to talk about. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good